A couple more things. We talked a little about just evaluation. You talked about a couple ways to evaluate yourself, where you're at in discipleship. Is there anything else just talking about how we measure our progress along this pathway?
Yeah,
Any thoughts you might have on that? One of the things I was thinking about when you were
yeah,
showing me um, when you can evaluate yourself and see how you kind of tilt on that is you can evaluate your curriculum you're using as well in the
yes,
same way.
absolutely.
And you can say, hey, is there an area that it's not hitting? We need, and
Yes.
people, I just got an email yesterday asking me for resources on curriculum on the baptism of the Holy Spirit because we're not finding that, and they recognize that what we're teaching isn't hitting that. And so I came up with like 5 or 6 different resources to say, hey, here's some ideas. So, but that evaluation, you can use that to evaluate your curriculum that you're using as
Yeah, that's
well.
great. That's excellent. Yeah. And that's what I would say is most often, if you're not using Assembly of God curriculum, that's one of the most frequently missing elements, and that is one of our core beliefs. And so we can assume most curriculums, if they're not AG, are missing that, but they're also often missing one or two other elements because of their own approach to it. And so
Right.
agreed times 1,000. Assess your curriculum. And I would just add to that, curriculum is just a tool. And so I would just say in caution, don't just always do your curriculum as written. Continually, consistently be checking it and looking at it and assessing it because even when you first decide to adopt that curriculum, you may do a lot of assessing, but over time, curriculums change. And so continually go back and look, is it still meeting our needs?
Right.
Is there something we should be doing differently? So,
Excellent. Is there anything else in that area of measuring our progress that you wanted to mention?
yeah, I would just say this is where it's really important that you are getting to know your kids on an individual level. This is where parent surveys help and some other places. But I would even go so far as to really keep solid numbers. Now, numbers don't speak about everything, but it does help us give a picture. And so things like knowing the percentage of kids who own their our own Bible and deciding how or if you need to do something about that to see that number increase, or the percent of parents who indicate they regularly pray at home, and using that to inform if there's something you need to be doing to help see those numbers increase. You can use all kinds of, if you will, stats like that to help you recognize if there are gaps. And our response to that can be things like a Bible challenge, a daily prayer challenge, or using something like a church's 21 days of prayer and fasting and doing at a kid level to help increase involvement and engagement. So I do think we have to keep numbers and we do have to use them to
Right.
inform us in our ministry as well.
Yeah. No, I think if you don't know where you're at, you're going to really have a hard time getting to where you want to go. And so
Correct.
it's important to evaluate anything that's worth doing is worth evaluating. And there are
Absolutely.
times, I'll be honest, Julie, I don't want to spin my wheels.
Yeah.
I want to know that I'm making a difference. And the longer I live, the more I realize that, life is short
Yeah.
and I want to be productive and I want to be effective, and I can't be afraid of evaluation and evaluating my progress and the progress of the ministry that I'm in. And one of the things when I consult with churches, if we say, "Hey, here's our ministry here's how we do evangelism," well, if nobody's come to Christ in the last year in your method of
Yes.
evangelism, you probably need to rethink that. And
Yes. Yeah.
we have we have programs that are outreach programs that aren't reaching people, and so
Right.
we probably need to evaluate that. And so that,
Yeah.
I think that's important. We need to measure our progress and not be afraid of the results,
Yes.
but to embrace them and say, this is a gift that God's giving you, to say, hey, how can we make it better? Because
Yeah.
the truth of the matter is that your volunteers, they don't want to be spinning their wheels either.
Right,
and
right.
and none of us do. So
Yeah.
we want to be involved in something that's making a difference.
Yes.
And the best way to recruit people is say, hey, this is the difference that's happening in people's lives.
And I would say, because I've
So
had
you're
this
going to say something.
conversation a lot like you, I hear a lot of leaders who say, I don't have time for the numbers game. And I
Right.
say, my recommendation is to do less and pay attention to that more.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, what those numbers speak to as far as their faith life is more important than one or two more programs or events or activities that you're trying to offer. And so we do need to be honest about that as well. I know our people are always saying they want us to provide them activities, but our responsibility and our opportunity is disciples and
Yeah.
discipleship making. And so that means we do need to carve out and make the time for this kind of assessment in our ministry
Right.
regularly.
Right. And ultimately that kind of brings us to kind of wrapping this up a little